manage if they could to come in the. Okay, next is modify timing and location of service delivery. You can change where and when you are delivering. So offer incentives for non-peak usage. If the people are coming when the uh, demand is very less, so you can give them some incentives so that they are encouraged to come at the same time, okay, like the similar time when there is no demand or much demand basically. So next, set priorities. So cater those customers first who are in very much of need and to the regular customers. Then charge full price. When you are having high demand, there is no point in giving them discounts and all, because you are already having more demand which you are very much struggling to basically cater. So at that time giving discounts will not matter for the customer as well as for you. Okay, so next is when the demand is low, so at that time we saw stimulate business from current market segments. So go to other market segments also and check whether they are in need of our services at slack times. Use the same facility for some other work or give it on lease or something, so that you can do. So vary the service offering. So what kind of services you are offering, you can vary those. At the peak times, your major work, what you're doing, you can offer some other services to the customers. The next, differentiate on prices. Yes, again, at high demand, you can keep your prices high, and at the low demand, you can give them discounts. So that will again make the demand curve smoothen, because if you are increasing the price, some people may think, okay, I have seen lesser price, so I'll go at that particular time. So those people will fall out. That will decrease your demand at the high demand times. So when you are giving discounts, yeah, people tend to come to your shop or your uh, place where you are giving the service. So it is balanced. The lower demand is balanced as the people come in or the customers come in. So next, moving to the second one, adjusting capacity to meet demand. So again here, as I told you, when we are having high capacity, so if you can increase the capacity of your working. Next, stretch time temporarily. So that means if you're working for 8 hours, you can increase the timing by 2 hours, extending, make it to 10 hours or 9 hours, depending upon the demand at that particular moment of time. Next, stretch labor temporarily. Ask your labor to work more. If they are having a one shift, you can ask them to work for 1.5 shift if required. So you have to pay them overtime, that is there. But you are managing the demand well. The next, stretch facilities temporarily. So if you can accommodate more in that particular facility only, so well and good. If you are wasting some place for some other thing, for unwanted things, you can remove those and you can utilize that particular place to cater some other customers. Next, stretch equipment temporarily. For equipment, I gave an example like 2 times for that particular route in a day. So you can make it 3 times or 4 times at a peak demand. So you are using your equipment more than the usual as you had used in the other times. Okay, if you are going for 2 trips, you are doing now 3 or 4 trips. But you need to take into consideration the wear and tear of that particular equipment. So if you are using more, you have to have maintenance more on that particular equipment. Then coming to when demand is less. So at the time of demand, when it is very less, so we are adjusting the capacity, remember. So use part-time employees. So when you are using part-time employees at higher demand, you can lay them off at the demand when it is very less. So you can ask them, we'll call you whenever it is required. So you can do that. Then outsource. If anything can be outsourced, like I gave an example of cloud server. If you are a service-based company who is giving an online service to the customers, what you can do is at the peak time you need more server capacity. So if you need not buy all those that particular cloud space, you can go to a person or any people who are specialized in that particular work. You can outsource for certain period of time. So there are many people who are giving you the cloud space for a certain period of time if you pay them a certain amount. So you can go for such people where they will be helping you in maintaining your business. Okay, something like that. It is outsourcing. Next, rent or share facilities or equipment. So at that particular moment of time, like for example, I gave you a mail. So if you are a company who are delivering mails from one place to another or delivering things from one place to another, at certain festive times, there are more things to be shipped from one place to another. That doesn't mean you are buying more vehicles. So at that moment of time, you can go and rent for those vehicles, and at the end of that period, you can give it back. So no need for you to invest a huge amount in the facilities or the equipments basically. So you can rent them at that particular moment of time. Then you can schedule downtime during periods of low demand. So that means if you're having any maintenance of that particular facility or that particular equipment, you can keep in on days where the demand is low, so that you are not losing the opportunity of serving those customers, as well as you are maintaining those particular equipments as well as facility, you are overhauling those. Next, cross train employees. So this means you have to train employees for doing multiple things. I gave you an example of a manager in a restaurant. If the demand is too much, even the manager supplies some of the things. He even works as a supplier or a waiter at times. So he helps that particular team of people who are trying to serve you guys the tastiest and the better food what they are making. So at times even the manager comes and he starts delivering you things if required. When it is slack time, yes, he's a manager, he goes back to his work, and the other things are taken care by the employees. So this is cross train employees. So when the demand is high, the employees, if required, have to do some other work than their usual work. And when the demand is low, they could come back to the normal work they are what they are doing. Okay. Then modify or move facilities and equipment. Okay. If required, you can change some of the facilities. So if you can extend, if you are having space, you can extend by putting some of the roof or something temporarily, and you can use that particular space. And again, when the demand is less, you can remove it off and use as normal. Okay. These are the few strategies when we are shifting the demand or we are adjusting the capacity accordingly as required. So based on what kind of service you are providing, you have to see whether you can shift the demand to match the capacity, or you have to adjust the capacity to meet the demand. So these things you have to see based on what kind of service you are providing, what kind of things can be done. So next, if you see combining demand and capacity strategies. So whatever strategies just I mentioned, you can have combination of this. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to use only one, or you have to use only change in capacity or change in demand. You can go for the strategies where we are using both. We can make use of both the strategies. Like you can communicate to the customers where the demand is high and when the demand is low, as well as you can hire temporary employees also. So you are using two different strategies to basically maintain or to serve the all the people, basically to serve all the people who are coming to you as customers to avail the services that you are providing to them. Okay. Next, yield management. This is very, very much important. Basically, whatever you are doing is for maintaining the yield. Yield means whatever you are getting from the services that you are providing, right? It is not for free of cost. So yield management is a term that has become very much attached to different kinds of methods. Some very sophisticated, employed to match demand and supply in capacity constrained services. Using yield management models, organizations find the best balance at a particular point in time among the prices charged, the segments sold to, and the capacity used. The goal of yield management is to produce the best possible financial return from a limited available capacity. So making maximum out of whatever capacity you are having. That is what is yield management. Yield management also referred to as revenue management, attempts to allocate a fixed capacity of a service provider. So when you are having a fixed capacity, you have to think on whatever maximum that I can get from that particular limited capacity that I am having. That is yield management. Or also it is also termed as revenue management. Revenue in the sense how much money I am getting for how much money I am using in that. So there is an equation. So if you see on the screen, yield is equal to actual revenue divided by potential revenue. So where actual revenue, how to calculate that? Actual capacity used into average actual price. So why we are using actual capacity or average actual price? Because if you are having any discounts in slack period and all, and you are charging normally or more than normal when you are having high demand, so you have to have an average actual price. So actual capacity used, whatever the capacity you have, or you have using from that particular capacity that you have. So that is actual capacity used into actual, sorry, average actual price will give you actual revenue. Then potential revenue, total capacity. So when I say actual capacity and total capacity, actual capacity may be equal to total capacity or may not be. So at times the capacity is more, but you are not using the total capacity, or the whatever capacity you are having, you are not using completely. So that is total capacity, and whatever you are using, that is actual capacity. So at times actual capacity may be equal to total capacity or may not be. So potential revenue is equal to total capacity into maximum price, the highest price that you are charging. So that is your total potential revenue. That means that much of revenue could be generated if you are charging the maximum price and using the total capacity. So yield is equal to actual revenue divided by potential revenue. So that will give you the yield. So now if you are doing any service-based work, you can find out this particular yield, how much yield you are getting. So based on this particular equation, that is actual revenue divided by potential revenue. Next, implementing a yield management system. So what do you mean by a yield management system? So to manage particular yield in your service-based company, so what management system have to be implemented? So that is what is implementing the yield management system, balanced capacity utilization. So always you have to balance between your capacity and demand. So just now we saw some of the strategies. So using those strategies, we are balancing the capacity with the demand. To implement a yield management system, an organization needs detailed data on past demand patterns by market segment as well as methods of projecting current market demand. So what the first part is past data of demand patterns. To implement this, first we should know something, right? So what was the demand and when it was. So past data on the demand patterns. So that is very much required for implementing. So allocations of capacity for specific market segments can then be communicated to the sales representatives or reservations staff as targets for selling rooms, seats, time, or other limited resources. Based on what kind of information you have and what kind of service you are providing to the customers, you can give the targets for your employees on the based on the previous data patterns. So based on that particular previous data patterns, what you have got, you can give the targets. So you can ask, okay, this particular month, based on the previous data that I have, I need to have 80 customers this particular month for that particular service. So 80 can be your target, or you can put it as 85 also. You can ask your employees to work more than what they had worked in the previous month or same month in the previous year. It can be anything. So based on previous data, you are giving the targets to your customers. So next, yield management approaches. So when we can use, or at what particular time we can use, or what is the appropriate timing or appropriate situation for using yield management approaches. First one, they have relatively fixed capacity. Second one, they have perishable inventory. Third one, they have different market segments or customers who arrive or make the reservation at different times. I'm just going through it because I don't think much of explanation is required for this. So they have relatively fixed capacity. That means not very much of change happens in that those particular capacity that particular facility has, or it is a perishable inventory. You already know services has to be uh, produced there only and consumed there only, or simultaneously basically. So you cannot produce and store any particular service. So it is perishable inventory. They have different market segments. If you are catering to many market segments at different moment of time, so who arrive or make their reservation at different times. They have low marginal sales cost and high marginal capacity change costs. That means sales, okay, you are having a low margin, but if you are trying to change the capacity of your facility at that time, you are incurring more costs. So at that particular time, next is the product is sold in advance and fluctuating demand. If there is a product from your service, if you're selling any of the product in advance for the fluctuating demand, then you have to go for this. Because people come and book earlier, right? For example, flights, then your trains and all, they are booking in advance because there is a huge demand supply curve. Okay. Chinese customers who arrive or reserve early are more price sensitive than those who arrive or reserve late. Why? Because you already know when you are if you are traveling, you have fixed your traveling dates, so you are making the reservations early because the prices are less if the time duration that you are traveling is way ahead than what you are booking for. So at that time it is less, but if it is a late reservation, the prices may go very high. So best example is airlines. If you are booking for more than 3 or 4 months earlier, so it would be cheaper than 50% of whatever they charge the day before or a week before. So that you already know. Next, waiting line strategies. So there are some things. When demand is more, you have to wait, right? So waiting line strategies. So what are they? Sometimes it is not possible to manage capacity to match demand or vice versa. So it may be too costly. For example, most health clinics would not find it economically feasible to add additional facilities or physicians to add or to handle peaks in demand during the winter flu season. Patients usually simply have to wait to be seen. So here, an example is given when there is a high demand for physicians, that is in winter season when flu or cold is higher, so many people go to physicians. So for that particular time, they can't just increase the facility or put more physicians in a particular hospital because the demand is for a very short period of time. So at that moment of time, people or the customers or the people who are trying to avail that particular medical services have to wait or have to wait in a queue basically. So they have to wait for their turn to come and they have to avail that particular facility what is being given to them. So capacity utilization or pricing strategies may not be under the control of service organization. So you cannot make sure as soon as the customer walks in, you are providing the services. If you are sitting ideally or demand is very less, yes, that can be done. As and when the customer walks in, you are providing him the service. But at the time of peak demand, you cannot do it. Some of the customers have to wait for a certain period of time, but you should make sure that the waiting time is very less. So we are seeing those strategies only now. So waiting line strategies. What are those? First one, employ operational logic. So what do you mean by this? Employ operational logic. Line strategies. So what you are doing is you are keeping your customers who are waiting in line, you are making them, keeping them busy. So giving them some task, asking them to do something. So that is very much important. If you are standing there ideally, it is very much difficult, okay, for the people to stand there or wait there. Okay. If customer waits are common, a first step is to analyze the operational process to remove any inefficiencies. It may be possible to redesign the system to move customers along more quickly. Okay. So for example, I can give you banks. Okay. If you can go to any of the banks, now it is not so crowded, but
At times, if you go, it is very much crowded, and you have to wait in line for a longer period of time. So if that is the case for most of the times, so what the bank can do is they should find out, okay, where they are going wrong, why this particular line is being getting bigger and bigger, or why the waiting times for the customers is increasing. So you have to find out, is there any operational change that is needed to serve the customer better? Okay. So for example, you can give them some tokens. So you can tell them some time. So based on the average time a particular person stands in front of that particular uh, area where he is getting that particular service. It can be like, for example, few people are finishing in 5 minutes, some people are taking 10 to 15 minutes. So in general, on an average, if you take, it is 10 minutes that a particular person is waiting. So based on that, if you are giving tokens, you already know how many people are there in a queue, and you can give them a certain time period. So based on the time each and every person is taking to avail that particular facility, so you can give him, like for example, 2:30 your turn comes. It can be before 2:30 or just after 2:30, 2 to 3 minutes. So it is not that difficult for that person to stand or wait for 2 to 3 minutes, because he already knows, he is mentally prepared that he has to wait there till 2:30. So at least that if you are telling him, so the customers are okay. Otherwise, it is very difficult. You never know when your turn comes. So you are very much anxious, knowing when my turn will come. Should I move out and come back? If you are having any other work, you can complete it and come back. So that would be very easy if you are giving them a particular time period. Okay. Next is establish a reservation process. When waiting cannot be avoided, a reservation system can help to spread demand. Restaurants, transportation companies, theaters, physicians, and many other service providers use reservation systems to elevate long waits. That means to minimize long waits. So you can have a reservation process also. If you are coming today evening, you can call and book for a reservation at particular moment of time. So if you are doing that, that means when you are arriving, your facility or whatever you are availing will be ready for you at that particular moment of time, or the wait would be very much reduced than if you had no reservations. Okay, that will help you in your business a lot. So establish a reservation system. So where all it can be used, this particular reservation system, they are already using it. But as an example, I tell you, in hotels, in airlines, for conferences and training programs, and in theaters. So in theaters, you are reserving, right? Pre-booking, what we call. So if you are going there for a movie, if already you know, then you can pre-book that particular reservation, okay, or that particular seat by calling them and telling them, yeah, we are so many people, we are coming at this particular time, so please reserve
So,
us with any seats. Okay,
so,
so that
so,
will be very much helpful in reducing the waiting time. Next is differentiate waiting customers. So what do you mean by differentiate waiting customers? Not all customers necessarily need to wait the same length of time for service. On the basis of need or customer priority, some organizations differentiate among customers, allowing some to experience shorter waits for services than others, known as queue discipline. Okay. Such differentiation reflects management policies regarding whom to select next for service. Okay. The most popular discipline is first come, first serve. So why this particular queue discipline is required? So at times, for example, I'll give you an example of a hospital. If many patients are coming and waiting in line, okay, so if first come first service first serve basis is employed there, what happens is, so as and when your turn comes, you need to go. So irrespective of your severity of your issue, okay, if any accident case comes, so first priority has to be given to that, because it's a life and death situation, and you can wait for a few more minutes or a few more hours for that matter if there is an operation that needs to be done. So priority has to be given to those people where it is very much in need of. Or in certain places, like for example airlines, if you are a frequent flyer, so there will be frequent flyer benefits. So you need not wait in queue for a longer period of time. They make you a VIP entry or a certain entry where only the frequent flyers are allowed. So that is one of the additional perks that the particular company is providing you, that if you are a customer for that particular airline for a longer period of time, they can skip the line and they can get you in. So the waiting period is very, very much less than others who are not that frequently flying. So that is differentiating waiting customers. Okay. So differentiation can be based on factors such as importance of the customer. Just I explained about importance. Frequent customers or customers who spend large amounts with the organization can be given higher priority in services by providing them with a special waiting area or segregated lines. That means a separate line for only those people who are frequently being our customers. Next is urgency of the job. Those customers with the most urgent need may be served first. This strategy is used in emergency healthcare. I just gave an example of an hospital. The same example is given here. Urgency of the job. Next one is duration of the service transaction. In many situations, shorter service jobs get priority through express lanes. If a particular place is providing multiple services to the customers, so there is no point in waiting if your service is very small. It is taking a very small duration, and there are other services which are taking very much longer duration. So you can have separate counter or a separate place where these particular services where you are availing or you are taking a smaller time to avail that particular service. So at that moment of time, you can choose those and send them early, because they need not wait for a longer period of time to avail a service which is of a very shorter duration. So next is payment of a premium price. So customers who pay extra, okay, customers who pay extra are often given priority via separate check-in lines or express systems. So if you are paying more than whatever is being charged or expressway, so in most of the places you might have seen, if you are paying more, you are given a VIP service and you are taken through a separate lane. Okay, so where you can avail the service whatever they are providing in a faster pace if you are not having time, right? So these are the things while differentiating the waiting customer. So when and where. So first one, importance of the customer. So how important he is, if he is a frequent flyer with us, or if he is a person who is availing our services frequently, yes, then urgency of the job based on the requirement or the urgency. Here changing the time duration, then duration of the service transaction. If there are multiple durations of multiple services, the shorter ones are taken first and finished off. And then the last one, payment of premium price. If the customer is paying you premium or more than whatever you are charging them, then a special treatment is given to you or your waiting time reduces. Okay, next is make waiting pleasurable or at least tolerable. So here I have given make waiting more pleasurable or tolerable, in the sense it should be very much in your hands so that you are not very much anxious or irritated to wait. So even when they have to wait, that is the customers have to wait, they can be more or less satisfied depending upon how the wait is handled by the organization. The actual length of the wait will affect how the customer feels about their service experience. But it is not just the actual time spent waiting that has an impact on customer satisfaction. It is how the customers feel about the wait and their perceptions during it. The type of wait can also influence how customers will react. So it is not just the wait that it is. So how they are waiting. So what they are doing at the time of wait. How the organization is asking them to wait or making them wait. So if you are providing them with chairs, or you are just asking them to stand there, or it is like you are coming and you are waiting, and another person who has come after you is getting the first priority. So that makes an customer very much irritated and angry. So satisfaction of the customer. So first, before availing only, is dissatisfied with the organization in the way they are making them wait. So there are very less chances that the customer will be waiting for a longer period of time. So that waiting area or the making your customers wait is also very, very much important.
Okay. So next, psychology of waiting line customers. This is, excuse me. So this is like to know what customer thinks when he is waiting, or what kind of psychology a particular customer may have, okay, while waiting in the line. So first one is unoccupied times feel longer than occupied times. So just now I told you, if you are just standing ideally, that feels more time you are waiting, even if you are waiting for a lesser period of time. If you are doing something or occupied with some of the work, even if the time is more, you may not feel that you are waiting for a longer period of time. So more likely to be will notice the passage of time more than when they have something to do. Providing something for waiting customers to do, particularly if the activity offers a benefit in and of itself or is related in some way to the service, can improve the customer's experience and may benefit the organization as well. So what they are telling you is, so if you are asking customers to wait, so don't leave them ideally. Just give them some work, or you make them go through a process where it is helping them in getting that service better. For example, I'll give you, if you are asking to, if you are having a restaurant and you are asking your customers to wait for a certain period of time, what you can do is you can give them the menus. They want and decide prior moving into the place, designated place where you are giving them to sit and avail your service. So that means what you're doing is you are preoccupying your customers by giving them some task which will be helping them in getting the service better, or getting the service availed in a better way. Okay, so if they decide well in advance, that makes the process faster also, and they are occupied in finding out what dishes to have when while they are waiting to have their turn. So that will make the time very, very much better. If they are standing ideal, that would be very much difficult for the people to wait. So you give them the menus and ask them to choose what they want to have before moving into their tables. So next, pre-process waits feel longer than in-process waits. Okay. If wait time is occupied with activities that relate to the upcoming services, customers may perceive that the service has started and they are no longer actually waiting. This in-process activity will make the length of the wait seem shorter and will also benefit the service provider by making the customer better prepared when the service actually does begin. So one example I already gave you in the previous one, that is giving the customers menu in a restaurant when you are asking them to wait. Yes, even that is the process is already started before the customer has taken their place, right? So similarly, in a medical or in a hospital, in a place where medical services are given, or in a hospital, if you are asking the patients to fill out the forms, if any required, then at the time of waiting, it is very, very much important to give them. So that means they are already they feel that they are already in the process of getting that particular service availed. That means you are not wasting their time. After when the turn comes, you are not asking them to fill the forms. Again, the customer will be very much irritated because he is there because he is not well. So when he is waiting, if you are allowing him to fill out the forms, so that means he thinks he is already in the process of getting that particular service availed. Okay, so that makes him feel that he is not waiting for a longer period of time. Okay, this is very, very much important again while you are asking your customers to wait. Next is anxiety makes waits seem longer. Okay, when customers fear that they have been forgotten or do not know how long they will have to wait, they become anxious. And this anxiety can increase the negative impact of waiting. Anxiety also results when customers are forced to choose in a multiple line situation and they discover they have chosen the wrong line.
Okay, this is very much interesting. So if you see, when you are not certain that how much time you are waiting, so again you are feeling very much anxious. Okay, when will it come? How much do I have to wait? Array, I had some other work. I would have finished that. Now I am stuck here. So people are very much anxious when they don't know certainly when their turn is going to come. Or if you are having multiple lines, okay, so you might have experienced this. You are waiting in a multiple lines, for example, in a bank or in a uh, theater where you are booking. If you are going there and booking in person, there are multiple lines, okay, or multiple queues. So if you choose a queue and the other queues are moving ahead than you, then you feel anxious. Array, I would have chosen that particular queue, so it is moving faster. So again, you are getting more anxious. Array, बाकी के सब जा रहे हैं and even I am waiting. So that is a case. So that is the case if you are waiting for a longer period of time and if you choose a wrong line which is taking longer, bit longer, it can be just 2 minutes uh, late than whatever others are doing, you feel more anxious. Array, I could have chosen that particular line. So this is very much experienced by most of us in our routine life. Next is uncertain waits are longer than known finite waits. So just now I said when people know for what or how long they are waiting, they will be very much comfortable or more comfortable than when they are waiting without knowledge of how much time they have to wait. Okay. Anxiety is intensified when customers do not know how long they will have to wait. Healthcare providers combat this problem by letting customers know when they check in how far behind the and physician is that day. Some patients resolve this certainty themselves by calling ahead to ask. Okay, most of the hospitals, you need to call them and book your entry there. So at times, if you are calling now, so they might ask you to come after 2 hours or 3 hours. So few people they directly go after 3 hours, or few people they call after 2.5 hours to check whether how many people are there before them or what is the time duration they need to wait again if they come at that particular designated time. Sometimes it so happens that there are emergencies or a particular patient is taking more time than average time or than longer than usual. So at that time you have to wait more. So if you're calling to check whether everything is on schedule or on time, so that will help you. So you can go there even 5 minutes or 10 minutes late than what was called for. Okay. So research in an airline context has suggested that as uncertainty about the wait increases, customers become angrier, and the anger in turn results in greater dissatisfaction. Okay. Research also shows that giving customers information on the length of the anticipated wait and or their relative position in the queue can result in more positive feelings and acceptance of the wait and ultimately more positive evaluation of the services. If the people are knowing how much to wait or in what place they are in a queue, that means after 5 people you are there, or after 8 people, or after 2 people if you are there. So that makes you feel confident as well as you are not that anxious. You already know that okay how much you have to wait. You are mentally prepared. So if you don't know anything, you are just made to stand in a queue without any information given to you, you are more anxious and dissatisfied at the end of that particular service delivery. So people what they do? They will inform basically how much to wait if there is a longer queue, or after how many people you are there, or in general you go and ask okay how many people are there before me. Okay, that makes you less anxious. So next is unexplained waits are longer than explained waits. So unexplained in the sense when people understand the causes for waiting, they frequently have greater patience and are less anxious, particularly when the wait is justified. And an explanation can reduce customer uncertainty and may help customers estimate how long they will be delayed. So just by telling you, okay, you have to wait for half an hour, yes, that reduces the anxiety, but it will be furthermore better if you are telling them why they are waiting. Okay, if you are justifying their wait because people might have different works after this particular service, so they may be very much interested to know why their service is being delayed. So if we are providing them with the reason why it is being delayed, they will be much more comfortable waiting than just waiting there for a certain amount of time. Okay. Unfair waits are longer than equitable waits. So what do you mean by unfair waits? When customers pursue that, they are waiting while others who arrived after them have already been served. The apparent inequality or inequity will make the wait seem even longer. The situation can easily occur when there is no apparent order in the waiting area and many customers are trying to be served. This you usually experience in a restaurant. Okay, people come in, they take all the places or designated seats, and you are also there before a certain people who have already occupied. Okay, you both give the order at a time, or you are giving earlier than that particular people, but still they are being served earlier than you. So what happens if you come to know that you are very much anxious to know, yeah, they have come late or after us, but still you are serving them before us. So this happens with most of us. So if you come to know that, okay, I have come earlier than the other people who are being served before us, so you are very much angry as well as dissatisfied based on the type of service they are providing you. This happens because there is no order. Okay, so when those particular people in the restaurant did not see who has come first or who has come late, so these things happen. So as and when if you are taking the order and giving it in the kitchen, as and when it is coming, that particular person is preparing. So if he is not having the order, he is preparing order which has come later first, then that has to be served first. That means there is no particular order in which they are serving, which makes the customer dissatisfied as well as very much angry on the service what they are being availed. Okay. Next is, the more valuable the service, the longer the customer will wait. What do you mean by this? So if you feel that okay, the significance of this particular service is very much, then people don't mind to wait for a longer period of time. For example, if you go to a hospital, which is very, very much required for you, that means as much amount of time they tell you, you are waiting there because you are in need of the service and not that particular person. Okay, so if you feel that particular service is very much valuable, you can wait for a longer period of time. So there are very reputed restaurants where you have to pre-book for a month or before a month or so. Okay, so at that time your wait is justified because you want to experience that particular service that is being provided by them. Okay, you are very much looking for to avail that particular service. So your wait is justified because you feel the service that they are providing is very much more valuable or it is very much dignified. So you are ready to wait for a month before availing that service. In most of the restaurants in bigger cities, it happens. If it is very, very much pre-booked, the booking goes for more than a month or so. You have to book prior a month. So that also happens. Next is, solo wait feels longer than group waits. If you are alone who is waiting, that feels you are waiting for a longer period of time. So if it is in a group, so you are talking to the group, you are basically doing something, you are not unoccupied. So this is also very, very much important. You should not make a particular customer wait solo. You should make some arrangement. A manager has to speak to them or any person from the company or that particular uh, organization has to keep that particular customer busy in one or the other way if he is solo. So if it is in a group, well and good, it may not feel that much of waiting time. But if it is solo, you might also have experienced this. If you are alone, you feel you are waiting for a longer period of time than when you are with your friends or family. So this is the psychology of people or the customers when they are waiting in a line. Okay, it might be you also if you are waiting in a queue or in a line for availing a certain service. So first is unoccupied time feels longer than occupied time. Pre-process waits feel longer than in-process waits. Anxiety makes waits seem even longer than usual. Uncertain waits are longer than known finite waits. Unexplained waits are longer than explained waits. Unfair waits are longer than equitable waits. The more valuable the service, the longer the customer will wait. And the last one, solo wait feels longer than group waits. So if you are planning to have a service provider, or if you are willing to have a company which is providing service to the people, and if the demand is more and you are making your customers wait, this is the psychology where your customers think if they are standing in a line. So based on these particular psychologies, make necessary changes so that the customer feels happy and he should not feel that he is waiting for a longer period of time. So the best thing that you are doing is pre-process waits feel longer than in-process waits. So you should make sure that the person feels that is already in the process of availing the service. So there the waiting is very much less than he thinks when he is waiting just to start the process of availing the service. Okay, this is very much important. So we'll be ending here our class. So any of the doubts in this particular chapter or in today's class? Anyone any doubts? You can just let me know. So what all we covered, we'll just go back and we'll see. So we saw yield management. What is yield management? So yield is equal to actual revenue by potential revenue, and we saw how to calculate yield revenue and potential revenue. So implementing a yield management system. So what all is required? So past data is required and method of projecting current demand. So combination of those, you can have some system where you are gaining more with whatever capacity you are having. So next, yield management approaches. So when you can use the yield management approach, we have seen those. Then waiting line strategies. So there are four strategies. First one is employ operational logic, establish a reservation process, differentiate waiting customers, and make waiting more pleasurable or tolerable. So next is psychology of waiting line customers. So we saw how people in a waiting line or in a queue think when the different situations are there, and how to make them feel better, or how to make them feel that they are waiting for a lesser period of time. We have seen such 8 different things or 8 different psychologies of customers who are waiting in a queue. Okay. Anyone any doubts? Okay, then if you are having no doubts, we can end the class here today. Okay. Thank you, students.